Yeah, all good. All good. Good evening. It's a beautiful late spring evening here. Just been for a nice walk around, and I was doing a bit of reflecting on how this is my observation over the years, where sometimes footballers and teams, the fear of losing can almost outweigh the desire to win. And you tend to see that in sort of big games. There's a lot riding on the game. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot riding on every game, but particularly when you've got knockout matches, you've got the playoffs that are going on at the moment, the sort of time you've got playoffs and these huge games that carry huge consequences in the sense that if it's like a league, then you've got time to reset and refocus over the course of however many games in the year. Say you play 38, 40 games a year, you've got time. But in a sort of playoff or knockout situations, it's all different. Everything's sort of magnified, and the crowd and the intensity as well. And you see sometimes players who are really gifted technically and tactically start making basic errors where they'll misplace a pass, they'll be too scared to shoot, they might not track back, they might lose their opponent marking up, and they start to make these sort of mistakes, and that kind of the balance sort of gets tilted where the occasion itself can overwhelm a player. That sort of fear of failure. So the player stops playing that sort of freedom they may have played in other matches where all of a sudden they find themselves in a big game and knock out a playoff, whatever, and all of a sudden the consequences of the outcome weigh on the player's mind in terms of, okay, every mistake, every situation, lose this game, there might not be any coming back from this game. The opportunity might not sort of present itself again type thing, and all these futuristic scenarios that go through the player's mind that could happen in the future. What will happen if we lose, and what will happen this, that and the other. And I think for me, and I'm not here to give anyone any recommendations or make any suggestions or advice, it's purely my own anecdotal thoughts. I think in those situations, getting back to basics, making that pass, making the basics, tracking the runner, making space, showing for the ball as well, just making sure winning the duels, the 50-50s, focusing on that next pass and focusing on the now. That for me is really important at that point to stay in the moment. And for me, staying in the moment was a concept that I became familiar with when I was doing some Thai boxing in the early to mid 90s, and I started doing some Wing Chun at the time as well. And I've sort of recently, last year or two, started doing Wing Chun again. But the point being is I was quite fortunate to have some great people to learn from. The Sifu in Wing Chun, the trainer in kickboxing, they were sort of like, really different level. And they kind of emphasized that being in that moment rather than thinking too far ahead in the future. And I think that concept can be transferred, and that sort of concept I certainly transferred in my roles, performance-based roles with football teams and individuals over the years, that's for sure, where it's appropriate and applicable. But yeah, I mean, what's your take on it? Your thoughts? It's always good to hear other people's thoughts. I think for me, there's a sort of tipping point where the tipping point is that fear of losing starts to sort of become bigger than the desire of winning. Always good to hear everyone else's thoughts on this.